Welcome back to Fairly Fictional, where today we delve into the treacherous schemes of Morgoth. In a single fateful day, he orchestrated 3 of his most malevolent deeds, setting into motion the rise of his most formidable adversaries and narrowly escaping his own demise. Join me as we unravel this dark tale of ambition and betrayal. In the aftermath of the Battle of Powers, when the valiant hosts of the Valar laid siege to Utumno, Melkor's fortress of shadow and despair, Melkor, the most powerful of the Valar, was captured. Shackled with the chain Angainor, forged by the might of the Valar to bind his terrible power, he was imprisoned in the halls of Mandos, where he languished for 3 ages, brooding upon his vengeance and plotting the resurgence of his dark dominion. Yet not all was lost to the light. Sauron, his most trusted servant, managed to evade capture, slipping away into the darkness. As the Valar, still recovering from the grievous siege, found their energy sapped, they could not pursue every remnant of Melkor's foul host. Many wretched creatures and minions escaped into the wilds, left to brood amongst themselves, nursing their master's legacy of shadow, awaiting the day when their dark lord would rise once more. After serving his sentence, Melkor was summoned before the throne of his brother, Manwë, king of the Valar. He had been brought low, a prisoner to the might of the Valar, his pride and arrogance shattered beneath the weight of his own sins. Though in his heart simmered the embers of vengeance, and he swallowed the bitter draught of humility as he prostrated himself before the radiant figure of Manwë, begging for pardon. Manwë, though wary, was bound by his nature to believe in redemption. With a heavy heart, he granted Melkor his reprieve, yet the king of the Valar felt the eyes of Ulmo and Tulkas upon him, filled with discontent and foreboding. They knew that the nature of Melkor had not changed, and his freedom was a potential threat that could not be ignored. So the Valar held him within the confines of Valmar, the city of the Valar, where watchful eyes scrutinized his every move. But Melkor, crafty and cunning, harbored dark designs. Little did the Valar know that even as they set their watch upon the borders of Aman, he had already set his plans into motion, veiling his true form and slipping away to the south. He journeyed into the shadowed lands, seeking the dark and forsaken region of Avathar, a place where even the light of the 2 trees dared not tread. There, hidden amidst the cold cliffs, dwelled Ungoliant, a creature of insatiable hunger, a monstrous spider spinning webs of shadow. Some say she had once been a servant of Melkor, corrupted by his dark whispers, but she had disowned her master, desiring to be mistress of her own lust, taking all things to herself to feed her emptiness. She fled to the south, feeding on light and weaving her webs of darkness. As Melkor entered the domain of Avathar, he donned the guise of his former self, a dark lord, tall and terrible, radiating an aura of dread. In this forsaken place he sought out Ungoliant, finding her in the ravine where she dwelt. In the depths of shadow, where even the piercing gaze of Manwë could not penetrate, Melkor and Ungoliant conspired to weave their dark designs. Yet within Ungoliant stirred a conflict of emotions, for as she grasped the nature of Melkor's intent, she found herself ensnared between a profound lust for power and great fear. She quaked at the thought of venturing into the perilous realm of Aman, where the dreadful lords held dominion. The echoes of their might resonated in her very being, and a deep reluctance gripped her heart, rendering her hesitant to abandon the sanctuary of her concealment. Melkor, sensing her trepidation, urged her with dark promise. "Do as I bid, and if thou hunger still when all is done, then I will give thee whatsoever thy lust may demand. Yea, with both hands." His words were a web of deceit, spun to ensnare her will, a calculated ploy to allay her fears with the allure of power. He pledged his vow lightly, as was his custom, with laughter echoing within his mind. Thus did the great thief ensnare the lesser, binding her to his wicked purpose with the thread of her own desires. Shrouded in a cloak of unlight, they forged their conspiracy. With every step, the very essence of light faded before them, the shadows deepening and thickening as they ascended the heights of Hyamentir, the tallest peak of the region. The Valar, blissfully unaware of the encroaching threat, revelled in festivities below, unaware that doom approached from the mountains above. As the joyous sounds of Valinor echoed through the air, Melkor and Ungoliant stood upon the summit, gazing down upon the realm they sought to subdue. Below them lay the shimmering fields of Yavanna, the golden woods of Orome, and the radiant city of Valmar, glistening like stars scattered upon the earth. In that moment, Melkor's heart swelled with malevolent glee, for he was the architect of a dark epoch that would engulf the world. With a terrible laugh, he leapt down the slopes, followed closely by Ungoliant, her web of darkness cloaking them from the vigilant eyes of the Valar. They came upon the sacred mound of Ezelohar, where Lorelin and Telperion, the two trees of Valinor, stood in their glory. Unleashing his fury, Melkor struck at the two trees, plunging his spear deep into their hearts. Their golden sap flowed forth, spilling like blood upon the ground. Ungoliant, ravenous, feasted upon this vital essence, her grotesque form drinking deeply from the wounds. As she consumed the light, the poison of death that resided within her seeped into the trees, corrupting their tissues and withering them, root, branch, and leaf, until they lay lifeless, their brilliance extinguished. The land that had once thrived in radiant beauty fell into despair, shrouded in an unyielding gloom. But still, Ungoliant craved, her hunger far from sated. With her unquenchable thirst, she drank dry the wells of Vada, consuming all the light they contained. As she did, she belched forth thick black vapours that writhed and twisted in the air, enveloping the land in a choking shroud of darkness. As the shadows coalesced around her, Ungoliant swelled to a shape so vast and hideous that fear gripped even the heart of Melkor. The darkness that emanated from her was suffocating. An eerie silence resounded through Valinor as a great hunt began. The Valar, enraged and heartbroken by the heinous destruction, pursued the shadowy cloud that veiled Melkor and Ungoliant. In that chaotic moment, Melkor seized his opportunity to flee. He made for Formenos, where the treasures of the Noldor lay in waiting. There, in the depths of night, he struck down Finwë, the king of the Noldor, spilling the first blood of the Blessed Realm. As he raided the vaults, the lust for power surged within him, and he claimed the Silmarils, jewels of exquisite beauty and boundless light. Gathered beneath the two withered trees, the Valar heard news of the theft. Feanor rose, and lifting up his hand before Manwë, he cursed Melkor, naming him Morgoth, the black foe of the world, and by that name only was he known to the Eldar ever after. As Morgoth evaded the relentless pursuit of the Valar, he found himself within the desolate wastes of Araman. This vast expanse lay northward, nestled between the towering mountains of the Pelori and the Great Sea, mirroring the isolation of Avathar to the south. Araman spread wider and more barren, its plains growing ever colder as the icy breath of winter encroached from the north. With haste, Morgoth and Ungoliant traversed this bleak land toward the Helcarax. There, the strait between Araman and Middle-earth was choked with grinding ice, a treacherous passage that bore the weight of their dark intentions. With grim resolve, Morgoth crossed over, reclaiming a foothold in the northern reaches of the outer lands. Bound together in their treachery, Morgoth could not elude Ungoliant, whose gaze remained fixed upon him, her shadow ever enveloping him. They pressed onward until they reached the lands lying north of the Firth of Drengist. It was here, drawing near to the ruins of Angband, his once mighty fortress, that Ungoliant sensed the flicker of his resolve. A wicked understanding blossomed within her. She knew he sought to escape from her grasp. In that moment she confronted him, her unyielding thirst simmering beneath the surface. "Blackheart, I have done thy bidding," she demanded, "but I hunger still." Morgoth's thoughts turned to the treasures he had plundered from Formenos. "What wouldst thou have more?" he retorted, his voice laced with defiance. "Dost thou desire all the world for thy belly? I did not vow to give thee that. I am its lord." "Not so much," she replied, her eyes gleaming with dark desire. "But thou hast a great treasure from Formenos. I will have all that. Yea, with both hands thou shalt give it." Reluctantly, Morgoth surrendered to her demands, one by one relinquishing the precious gems he bore, watching as she devoured their beauty, leaving only emptiness in her wake. Yet even as her yearning grew, so did the shadows that coiled around her, darkening her form. But still her lust was unquenched. "With one hand thou givest," she hissed, "with the left only. Open thy right hand." In his clenched right hand, Morgoth held the Silmarils, locked within a crystal casket, their radiant light burning fiercely against his flesh, searing him with pain. Yet he resisted her command, his voice steady. "Nay, thou hast had thy due, for with my power that I put into thee thy work was accomplished. I need thee no more. These things thou shalt not have nor see. I name them unto myself for ever." But Ungoliant had grown powerful, and with her growing strength, Morgoth felt himself diminished. Enraged, she surged against him, her cloud of darkness enveloping him, ensnaring him in a web of clinging tendrils, seeking to strangle her former master. In desperation, Morgoth unleashed a terrible cry, a sound that echoed through the mountains and shook the very foundations of the earth. Thus was that place forever named Lamath, for the haunting echoes of his voice lingered there, eternally haunting those who dared to raise their voices within that desolate land. With a roar of fury, Morgoth struggled against Ungoliant's bonds, summoning forth the might that had once brought fear to all. But the power that flowed from the Silmarils burned him, and in his desperate cry, the echoes of anguish resonated throughout the northern realm. From the depths of Angband, Balrogs arose, drawn by the call of their dark lord. With their whips of flame, the Balrogs severed the webs of Ungoliant, who quailed in fear and fled, belching forth black vapours to cloak her escape. She retreated into Beleriand, seeking refuge beneath arid Gorgoroth, in the dark valley that would be known as Nan Dungortheb, the Valley of Dreadful Death, a place rife with horror. In this dark realm, she mated with other foul, spider-like creatures, consuming them in her insatiable hunger. Even after Ungoliant departed for the Forgotten South, her progeny lingered, weaving their grotesque webs. The fate of Ungoliant remains shrouded in mystery, yet whispers persist that in her final throes of famine, she ultimately consumed herself. Freed from his bonds, Morgoth summoned all his servants to the ruins of Angband, where he delved anew into vast vaults and dungeons. Above the gates, he raised the threefold peaks of Thangorodrim, shrouded in dark smoke. From these depths, his hosts of beasts and demons emerged, and the orcs he had bred multiplied in the earth's bowels. As darkness descended upon Beleriand, Morgoth forged a great crown of iron, declaring himself king of the world. He set the Silmarils within this crown, but their sacred light burned his hands black, leaving him forever tormented by the pain and rage. And that wraps up our tale of Morgoth and Ungoliant. But just as Morgoth called all evil things to him, I'd like to call all of you to join my community. Did you know only 2% of my regular viewers are actually subscribed? I'd love to get that number up to a respectable 5%. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video.